Welcome to the Wellborn Show. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share. Let me know your thoughts. And we are going to go through the fully edited Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Padawan Anakin Skywalker training duel. And we're going to be kind of breaking it down a little bit and talking about some of the key elements of this fight, why it's so important to the lore, why it's so important to the relationship between Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin, eventually Darth Vader. How it pertains to the story that they're trying to tell in the Kenobi show, but also some really cool Easter eggs that not a lot of people are talking about on the internet, and I kind of want to cover. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. 3, 2, 1, and go. And we're starting with a pause right here. So unless you're a diehard Star Wars fan, you probably wouldn't know that Anakin in this scene, because it starts with Anakin looking out, to the buildings of Coruscant, he's actually looking at Padme's penthouse, which this is prior to them really reconnecting in Episode 2, because they haven't seen each other up until the point where he sees Padme again in Attack of the Clones. So, depending on your point of view, your perspective, you either find this really romantic or super creepy because this random Jedi that's never had any sort of real conversation with this woman is just watching her penthouse from across the way. So it depends on how you perceive it. You know, if you're a really big Anakin Padme fan, you might find it kind of romantic. And I kind of bounce back and forth. I see the creepiness aspects of it. I see the romantic sides of it as well. Just because of, how the story kind of starts to unfold with the relationship between those two. So you can kind of see the romantic side. But if you didn't know who these people were and you didn't know the middle part of the story, you would probably find it super creepy.
Oh, there you are.
Obi-Wan Kenobi looks really good in this. Like super, super good. Almost like he hasn't aged at all. Now you can tell that he has, and he's actually. I think he's leaner. He's got less body weight on him in this scene than he does in Episode 2. I think his cheeks are a little puffier in Episode 2. But he actually looks really good. It's less of a jolt between now and Episode 2 with the way that he looks than it is with Hayden Christensen. Now, Hayden Christensen doesn't look old. It's just the fact that he was so young in Attack of the Clones. 17 years of growth, you start to get the wrinkles and things like that. That Obi-Wan kind of already had a little bit of that. He already had some of that maturity and some of the wear and tear on the body. So it's a little bit more jarring for Hayden than it is with Ewan. But I give the team props for this. I've been harping on this show a lot. I have very few nice things to say about this show, but this is probably the best collection of scenes in the entire show. There's some good scenes with Lord Vader when he's, really showcasing his power. That's for a different video. But this is probably the best collection of scenes so far in the show. And this is prior to, the season finale being released. So this looks great.
Was beginning to think you weren't coming, Master.
Good. Then maybe I stand more of a chance this time. Are you ready?
So this is the jarring part. When I first watched this live, I was like, man, I bounced back and forth on whether they should have de-aged him. You can make the argument that it's cheap, and it kind of cheapens I suppose the gravitas of the scene. And there's an aspect of me that really appreciates that they didn't de-age him, but in the spirit of trying to make it as chronological as possible, it probably would have served them better to have spent some money and de-aged them. Now, they're making this show, the Kenobi show, they're trying to produce it by pumping out as little money as possible. They're going extremely cheap budget, which is significantly hurting the show. I think they should have spent a little bit of money here and made it look really good. But he still looks fantastic.
Are you?
Then let's begin.
Okay, I noticed this in the in the live reaction of this, I don't know what it is, but there's something about these lightsabers that seem off to me. They look short to me. Let me know in the comments. But they look like, I don't know what it is. Either they made the blade too thick, or they just made the saber too short. I can't tell, but something looks funky to these lightsabers. So let me know in the comments if you're experiencing that same kind of feeling. And they should have spent more money on the backdrop. You can tell that this is green screen. And that's just the budget of the show, man. They really should have put more money into this, which is significantly hurting it. It's hurting the acting. It's definitely hurting the writing. The writing is just atrocious in the show. But in a scene that's this good, where you can clearly see that they're putting a lot of attention to these two characters, and they're trying to take good care of them in this one scene. Even though we want that to be the case throughout the whole show, it's good to see it actually happening and unfolding here, but they should have put as much money as they could have into the scene to make it look as good as possible. And if you watch any of the Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor interviews, they talk a lot about finally getting to reappear together on screen and how magical and just what an experience it was to actually get to shoot film together again. This is the scene that they're talking about. This is the scene that that they're referring to when they're talking about how special of a moment it was, which is really cool. Love this. So in episode 2, Obi-Wan's doing a lot of one-handed like guard position, which I don't know if that's necessarily a good decision if you're going into like a real sword fight. It's not a very strong position to be in, but I like that that at least Ewan McGregor went back to episode 2 and kind of studied how he naturally kind of moved around and went with this one-handed guard look, because you don't see that again the rest of the time he's on screen. You don't see that in episode 3. You don't see that in you certainly don't see that in A New Hope, and you don't see that in the Kenobi show either. He's playing a lot like Alec Guinness was playing it when he was on screen for New Hope. Now in episode 3, he does the Obi-Wan Kenobi, kind of signature, the signature move with his fingers, in the peace sign, kind of, with his blade held high. But he's not in this standard guard position again. Episode 2 is the only time he's in this particular guard position with one hand, which I thought was interesting, and I like that they went back to it. Now, I don't give the writers or Deborah Chow or anybody behind the camera any credit for that, except Ewan, because you can tell that nobody else did their homework. But Ewan and Hayden did a lot of research to kind of memorize and reimagine how they were playing the characters so that they could incorporate the appropriate pieces into some of these flashbacks, which was really cool. Look at that. This was my favorite part of this fight scene, is this particular move. It's so Anakin Skywalker. It's exactly like you see him fighting in episode 3. It's very aggressive. I believe he specializes in Form 5 of lightsaber combat, which is extremely aggressive. It's all offense. And then Obi-Wan over here is all defense, Form 2. Very focused on just protecting oneself until the aggressor showcases some sort of weakness or opening or grows tired and starts to get sloppy, and then you take advantage of those opportunities. So it's very cool to see that kind of shine through here, and it's a nice foreshadow on some of the choreography and fighting moves that you see in episode 3, which is really neat.
Grow too aggressive, Anakin. Be mindful. A Jedi's goal is to defend life, not take it.
So we have to pause for a second, because I see what they're going with, because he started out attacking, right? He's being very aggressive. You can tell in his face that he's very impatient. He's kind of upset, and every time Obi-Wan speaks and tries to teach, it makes him more and more frustrated. So I get where that statement's coming from. The problem is it comes right after Obi-Wan tries to cut Anakin's head off. So it doesn't make a whole lot of sense from his action in the immediately before what he's actually saying. But if you take the entire context of the last 8 seconds into play, then it makes more sense. This is also another foreshadow to episode 3, where they are fighting on Mustafar and the lava starts to rain down on them, and they're kind of back to back, trying to stay out of the lava fall, I suppose, the rainfall of lava. So this was kind of cool to see. Obi-Wan could have stabbed him though in this scene right before he gets back to back. He could have stabbed him right here if he was trying to kill him, but that's okay.
Mercy doesn't defeat an enemy, Master. Which is why you're gonna lose.
That was amazing. Amazing to see prequel style choreography again. It started off pretty good. There was a lot of unnecessary twirling by Obi-Wan. But this was a lot better. This was a lot better. Obi-Wan's in the guard position pretty much the entire time. It's really, really good. That's all guard position. Now they're just kind of doing the same move over and over and over again. It kind of goes back to the cheap budget. They probably didn't hire a really, really great choreographer or fight analyst in order to help them with this scene. But for the most part, this is pretty solid. And it's really, really fun to see prequel fighting again. It's such a breath of fresh air from all the other fight scenes in the Kenobi show, and certainly all the other fight scenes in the sequel trilogy, because those are just atrocious. I hope to never see such god-awful, terrible choreography and fighting technique ever again.
There's no way out, Master.
So if you kind of analyze this scene, Anakin's doing a lot of this bantering and talking, right? He's doing a lot of this, you're going to lose. There's no way out, And if you're the enemy, I would probably even say that he would probably be saying something along the lines of, like, this is the end for you, which is exactly what he does in episode 3. Like, you're going to die. Like, he's so aggressive, and he's trying to intimidate Obi-Wan and get into his head. And you can definitely see why and how that starts to leak into his overall viewpoint of the Jedi versus the Sith. It starts to leak into maybe the Sith aren't so bad because that's how the Sith talk. That's their mannerisms. That's their viewpoint. That's their perspective. So it's very, very interesting to see this, especially pre-episode 2, before his mom dies, before he kills the Sand People, before he, throws that tantrum on Tatooine talking about how he killed the children and that Obi-Wan's holding him back, which I'll get to in a moment. Very, very cool scene here because it's exactly the same scene as episode 6 where Luke Skywalker takes down Vader finally. Only the difference is after Luke cuts off Vader's hand, he realizes that he's turning into Vader. He's choosing the easy path of getting angry and letting his emotions dictate his actions. And so he throws his lightsaber away and he chooses peace. And he chooses his father over everything else. And that's what wakes up Anakin Skywalker within the suit and says, what have I been doing? Right? And that's how he gets his father to turn back to the good side. Anakin's doing the exact same move. He's just beating the crap out of Obi-Wan here. Only he doesn't have that same self-awareness of his emotions. So you can really, really see the contrast here. And this is where the rhyming scheme that is Star Wars, that's when it's done right. And this is when it's done well, is when you see scenes like this.
Admit you are beaten.
Okay. as a problem with the choreography, he swung and missed. I don't know what he was missing. Obi-Wan was on one knee, so I don't know how you could have missed that. He just purposely missed, so I'm not really sure. And it was super telegraphed and made it really easy for Obi-Wan to escape. So that's a problem with the choreography. That was awesome. Let's see it again. It's very episode 3. Let's go one a little bit further. And that spin actually makes sense because even though he's spinning unnecessarily, the twirl behind his back is still guarding his backside. It's still guarding his posterior chain. So even though it's unnecessary, the spin behind his back gives him some protection to where it would be less likely, still relatively likely, that like Obi-Wan could still take a stab forward, but it's less likely that it would hit. And it would be, if you're a cautious defense only kind of fighter like Obi-Wan is, he wouldn't take the chance to try to strive forward to try to take a shot. It makes more sense as to why Obi-Wan wouldn't attack there. Plus, Anakin's very aggressive anyways. It's not in Obi-Wan's nature to take that initiative and to turn the tides and go on the aggressive side. That would be an opportune moment for somebody who's maybe form 3 or form 1 or form 5, who just has been on the back step the whole time, to go on the offense, right? So it's just interesting. And actually, I think, now that I think about it, correct me in the comments, I think Obi-Wan might be form 4. I think form 2 is Count Dooku, very one-handed. I might be getting them mixed up. Let me know in the comments. So I don't know where they're swinging at here. I feel like they should be using training sabers, but you can tell that these are their legit sabers. This is Anakin's saber before episode 2. This is Obi-Wan's saber. It's kind of a hybrid between episode 1 and episode 2. So these are the real sabers, in non-canon, in the fictional books. Well, it's all fiction, but in the books, even on the real lightsabers, they have a toggle to where they can turn down the intensity of the blade to go from lethal to just like, if you make direct contact, it'll bruise you. So maybe that's in canon still, and they just haven't addressed it. So even if they were to connect, it wouldn't kill one another. But I don't know what they're trying to accomplish in this particular move. Anakin's going for Obi-Wan's legs. Like, if he connects, Obi-Wan's never going to be able to walk again unless he's a cyborg. And Obi-Wan is going for his head. So I'm not really, and that's the second time. So I'm not really sure what the purpose is, but it's cool. It's unnecessary twirling, but, there's a lot of unnecessary twirling in prequel fighting. But there's a lot more condensed into this fight scene than I would have liked, but it's not too bad. Okay, so I don't know why Obi-Wan switched grips here. I hate the reverse grip. It gives you less range. It gives you less ability to block specific moves. And you have to do more work to accomplish the same thing. He could have blocked this shot in his normal guard position like he's done 50 times in this fight scene already. So I'm not really sure what he's trying to accomplish. And I don't really know. Well, I mean, I can kind of see why he would lose the grip, because he does. If you're hitting it from left to right and you're holding it with your thumb, I can see how he would lose grip of his lightsaber in this scene. And it's just another reason why you shouldn't do a reverse grip, because it's way easier to lose control of your lightsaber.
There. Your weapon's gone. It's over.
Your need for victory, Anakin, it blinds you.
This is amazing face acting by Anakin Skywalker and Hayden Christensen. And it's a great line, too, because it really shows the problem with Anakin's maturity. And it really does a great job at forecasting his eventual downfall and his destiny. because he has this constant need to prove himself. And it's partly the Jedi's fault. They put him on a pedestal, and then they tell him that it's still not good enough, right? Like, you're the best fighter we've ever seen, but you still can't be a master. You're the best fighter we've ever seen, but you still can't be a Jedi Knight. Like, you're all these amazing things, but you still can't have what you really want. So it's partly the Jedi's fault, but it's also partly Anakin's fault of not checking his ego at the door, of not learning how to be humble. And you can see in his facial expression and his mannerisms here that what Obi-Wan Kenobi just said cut deep. It didn't help him. Obi-Wan's teaching is hurting him. And Obi-Wan doesn't recognize that, and that's part of his failure arc, right? He fails Anakin because he didn't know how to teach Anakin. He didn't know how to connect with him and teach him in a way to where it would be constructive. His teachings were very destructive to him, even though that's a line that probably would have resonated with me. That would have clicked with me, and it would have made me look inwards. But that doesn't necessarily happen for every single person. People learn differently, and things bother and hurt other people differently than they would hurt me or hurt you or whoever's watching this video. And so the fact that this is something that really cuts deep is absolutely fantastic. And you see that later in this episode with Kenobi trying to prove to Obi-Wan that he's now the master. He's smarter than Obi-Wan. I'm going to take you down. I'm going to arrest you, and then I'm going to kill you, and I'm going to kill all your friends. And Obi-Wan outplays him the entire way because he knows how Anakin thinks. He knows that his need to win and his need to prove that he's the greatest blinds him to the bigger picture. It blinds him to the other opportunities or other risk factors that may be involved in the scenario or the situation that he's in. He's very tunnel vision, and he's super tunnel vision in this fight too. Now, even though it's a 1v1, Obi-Wan is a Jedi Knight, and 2 years from being a master, 2 to 5 years from being a master. So he's very much ahead of the game in being able to see the bigger picture and being able to see other openings. Obi-Wan probably could have beaten Anakin 15 times at this point. There were so many openings from the fight alone, but if he would have tried a little bit harder of being on the offensive, it would have rattled Anakin enough to where he wouldn't know what to do, right? And so it's very, very cool scene here. Okay, I have a huge problem with this stuff. I hate sliding on the floor stuff. You see it with Reva later in this episode. She's basically stopped, dropping, and rolling around around Darth Vader like an absolute moron. And Obi-Wan is rolling around the floor like an absolute moron in this too. If Anakin wants to win this fight, just don't move. But because they have to, because Palat armor and Obi-Wan's kind of in a bind, they do this ninja kicking, round. It's not good stuff. He's not even trying to kick Anakin. That's why I can't really call it an official kick. He's just spinning on his knees. It's just not good. That's not a real kick. That's not going to do anything. It doesn't have enough force behind it to trip you. It doesn't have enough force to hurt your shin. That's not going to do anything. So I don't know why they keep doing this poor choreography floor work. Like, get a kickboxer in here and teach people how to kick. And get a jiu-jitsu person in here and teach people how to do some floor work. Because this is horrible. So, I mean, it's a testament to Anakin's immaturity, and still has a lot of growth to make and strides to make with his fighting skills too, because he telegraphs a ton of his moves. He could have still beaten him even if Obi-Wan had risen to his feet, if he had just played smarter and played a little bit more defense, given Obi-Wan Kenobi some room to stand. But he would have been in a good guard position, and then it would have been over anyways. But because he goes into an aggressive stance and tries to take out Obi-Wan, which I don't know what he was trying to do. Obi-Wan's defenseless, and they're Padawan and master. So like, you know, if he connects on that, Obi-Wan's dead anyway. So I'm not really sure what he's trying to achieve, but he should have just played defense there.
You're a great warrior, Anakin. But you'll need to prove yourself as your undoing. Until you overcome it, a Padawan you will still be.
And that's great setup for episode 2. So in episode 2, after Anakin's mom dies, he flies to Tatooine, he kills the Sand People, and then he has that scene with Padme where he's crying and he tells her that he killed all the Sand People, the men, the women, and the children too, and it's all Obi-Wan's fault. He's holding me back. This is a great scene that kind of shows you as to why he said that, because it doesn't really make a lot of sense as to why he says that if you don't see this scene. It always struck me as I was a little confused, because there's no dialogue in episode 2 that implies that, besides the fact that Anakin loses his lightsaber again and Obi-Wan kind of scolds him for it, but there's really no evidence that Obi-Wan's holding him back, besides maybe not wanting him to go on a mission with Padme alone. But that's because he's a teenager and hormones run wild, and he doesn't want him to break the Jedi code, knowing that he's also broken the Jedi code, right? So this scene kind of ties it in a lot better and kind of gives some context to why he feels like Obi-Wan is holding him back, because he still feels like he's ready for the trials. He feels like that's who he is. He's an emotional, he uses emotions in his fighting. He uses his emotions to gain strength. He uses his emotions to get the upper hand with his enemy. And that's what from his perspective, that's what gives him the justification to become a Jedi Knight. But he doesn't see that those are all traits of a Sith. Those are all traits of a dark Force user. And Obi-Wan just does a really poor job of explaining that in a way that connects with Anakin. It just cuts deep with Anakin. And he says, as long as you allow those things to dictate your actions, you're never going to be more than what you are now. And that frustrates him rather than motivates him. It hurts him more so than it does give him new perspective. And you can tell on Hayden's face that it's not helping. And you can tell that Obi-Wan's not connecting with that. He's not noticing that this isn't a helpful sparring session. It's just creating distance between the two rather than coming together as a unit to help elevate Anakin to who he really wants to be, which is a really great Jedi Knight. See, Obi-Wan thinks he did a great job, right? He smiles. He's like, hey, it's all good. You win the next one, slugger. But Anakin's so frustrated here. He's so frustrated here. He feels held back, which is really cool to see, and it makes so much more sense as to why he says that in episode 2, which is not far from this scene, right? It's coming around the pipeline really, really quickly. It actually could be the same day. We don't really know. It could have been moments before they got called over to Padme's office, right? We just don't know. And there you have it, ladies and gents. That is the Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Padawan Anakin Skywalker breakdown. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments below. Like, comment, subscribe. It always helps the YouTube gods. The YouTube gods love likes, comments, and subscribes. So go ahead and do that for me. If you have different thoughts, opposing viewpoints, or synergistic viewpoints, I'd love to hear those things in the comments. You're not going to hurt my feelings, but it's good dialogue and it's different perspectives. So please let me know in the comments your thoughts, and I will see you in the next video. Enjoy your day.